person, a beggar, was asking people for money. This was on the day of Arafah. He was asking, I'm poor, can you help me? Imam Zayn stopped him and says, why are you asking people on such a blessed day? Why don't you ask Allah? And I think what happens is we forgot in Islam we have a talking God. We have a God that listens to us. We have a God that says, call on me, I'll answer you. But unfortunately, we don't call on him. And we do things our own way. Why? Because the body takes over the mind. So how does that work? The way you brushed your teeth today, was it your mind or your body? It's your body. The way you tied your shoes today, was it your mind or your body? Your body. You didn't have to think about it. When you do something without thinking about it, that's your body. 95% of what we do on a day-to-day basis, we don't think about it. The way we drive, the way we look at things, the way we talk back to people. So if you can't think greater than the way you, if you can't think greater than the way you feel, then you've lost your free will to this body. And when do we change? When cancer comes, when somebody leaves us, then we wake up and say, okay. But why do we have to wait for pain and suffering to change? Why don't we use the supplications of the Imams and change and ask Allah? For even in Dua Arafah, Imam Hussain alayhi salam says, richness is within my soul, expose it, Allah. It's not outside of me. You don't find wealth and become abundant and wealthy. You don't find love and then say you have love. Everybody, most people, 95% of people are looking for something outside of them to make them feel whole. They're looking for that relationship. They're looking for the next video game. They're looking for the next time they go to their friend's house. And then they'll feel better. Where the prophets and imams were against this idea, saying you're responsible for your feelings. You feel abundant, you feel whole, and you'll attract it. And I'm going to give you stories of normal people, common people, doing the uncommon. And I'm sure there's somebody here that knows when they went to ziyarat, they had a condition, they couldn't have a baby. They came back and miraculously over 2 weeks or 2 months later, the baby's there, the cancer's gone. They've taken people who've never touched a piano and they had them reflect on playing the piano and giving them the instructions how to do it. They had another group actually practicing with the piano. They did the brain scans at the end of the week, same triggers in the brain, lit up. They both learned new things, even though the one group didn't touch the piano. But then they wanted to see if they could play just as good as the other group. And they played just as good. How does that happen? How does somebody do a bicep curl? They have 13% growth. And another group just thinking about a bicep growth, it grows 12% after 1 month. How does that happen? Because if you believe your thoughts have something to do with your reality, then we got to start thinking about what we think about. I'm going to tell you stories of people who have done it and their lives have changed. There's a person who was a multimillionaire. See, I'm fascinated by success. I know a doctor that's probably made over $50 million. He's a surgeon, and he's done other things as well. And he'll tell you he was in Mexico, he was raped, he was in the worst conditions. He was at rock bottom. But he remembered the day he prayed to Allah, and Allah brought somebody next to him. And that person helped him. He says it was all Allah said when he asked Allah. Another person who's an NBA player, he made the NBA. He says, every day I was in the ghetto. I never knew my father. But every day I would pray to God. And every day I envisioned a future that was greater than my present moment. And every day I woke up to that. There was another person. He was a marketer in New York. He was a millionaire. But does money make you happy? Not really. I'll show you some very wealthy people who are very unhappy. He was unhappy. Just wasn't happy. He went on a cruise. Sometimes we ask ourselves, why does Allah inflict pain? Sometimes we need a wake-up call in order to wake up. Well, he had a wake-up call. It's actually a TED Talk where you could see this 30-foot wave hitting the boat. And everybody on the cruise thought they were going to die. And he spoke to God. He said, God, if you allow me to survive this, I'll do your work. Out of the blue, the storm went away, but the cruise ship had to be sidelined in a third world country. So now they have everybody come out of the cruise, and they're walking around this third world country. And he sees this little boy. He says, I'll give you anything you want. Because he's looking now for God's work, because God healed him, helped him. The boy looked at him and says, I just want a pencil. Teach me how to write. He goes to this other group. He says, what would you like? He says, can you video record your English words so I could teach them to my kids so I could get them out of this country? So one thing that he realized is they need schooling. There's no schools. So he went back to his marketing job. They asked him, what do you do? I'm a marketer, but I'm looking to start schools in third world countries. How are you going to do it? I don't know, but I'm praying for a way. What are you going to call it? I'm going to call it Pencils for Promises. He now builds one school every 90 hours in third world countries. Every 90 hours, a new school. It's one of the biggest nonprofit groups now. But how did it start? He asked Allah. And then he got out of the way. So there's two components that you need. You need an intention, a niyyah, and you need an emotion. They took DNA molecule. They held it in people's hand. They said, shake it. They would shake it, they would look at the DNA, nothing would happen. They took another group, they said, shake it, but think of love. They would shake it, think of love, nothing would happen. They had the third group have the intention, when you shake it, that the molecules will spread. Nothing happened. The fourth group, have an intention of joy that when you shake this, the DNAs are going to spread, the molecules. Those are the only ones they saw movement in the DNA. So when you have an intention towards something that you want, and you tie an emotion to it, Allah then says, get out of the way. And Imams would come to you and say, why are you asking people? Ask Allah, and watch how Allah gives to you. Unfortunately, see, right now is a manifestation. When you dream, usually a lot of your dreams are a manifestation of your day. That's why I pay attention to your dreams. The next world is a manifestation of this world. All your actions, all the things that you do, it's you. It's just you. Just like in a dream, your mom could come to you, your dad, your brother, but it's actually just you. Just like you're in the womb of your mother. And let's say you look at your hands. You say, I don't need hands. You look at your feet. I don't need feet. What are these for? I don't need them. And as soon as you leave the womb, you look at your father. Who's that? Oh, that's your father. Oh, that's why I need hands. That's why I need feet. And in the same token, when you go from this world to the next, as soon as you leave, oh, that's why I should have been giving. That's why I should have been forgiving. That's why I should have prayed on time. Because now I would have manifested all these things. But if you were to learn that by living this way now, that you can manifest things right now, then you realize, oh wow, not only is it for the next world, it's for this world. So how do we do it? Well, you have to realize that you're building your own house. There was this famous architect, his name is Koda. He wanted to retire. He was one of the best architects in Japan. His boss asked him, can you do one more job? Just one more. He said, I really want to retire. I planned a vacation with my wife. We have it planned. I don't want to postpone it. The boss begged him, please just build this one more house. Reluctantly, he accepted. Reluctantly. So he built it, but he didn't put his heart into it. He hired other contractors. The house was built. At the end, he comes to his boss, I did my job. The boss says, one more thing. The guy complained. He says, what do you mean? He said, I could go. He takes out a box, the boss. He gives him the box, says, what's this? He opens it, and it's a key. What's it a key for? His own house. The whole time, he was building his own house. That's us. We don't realize we're building our own house right now. When somebody cuts us off, we have to get angry. We have an ego problem. We open up the door for somebody, what do we expect? For them to say thank you. And if they don't say thank you, what does the mind say? How dare does this person not say thank you for opening the door? Isn't it so? You know that's your ego. Why are you expecting something from somebody just because they don't say thank you? So one of the things that I do, the people who've been hurt, the people who've been abused, because what happens is if you have an emotion, you take a snapshot because you were abused, you were betrayed, what happens is you take that snapshot and you apply it to everybody in your life. Now everybody's a betrayal. So then you see a woman, what happened? My husband cheated on me. I can't stand him. And I just can't live with myself anymore. Can't believe the person I love the most betrayed me. How long ago? 15 years ago. Why? Because every day she's waking up to the same thoughts. And her body's convinced that event is happening every day. And that stress, what happens when you're stressed out that way? Eventually, your body shuts down. See, we're meant for short-term stress. If there's a lion chasing you right now, what's the thing that's going to come in your mind? This lion is going to eat me, which is the worst possible scenario, which is okay because you're in a state of stress. That's good because now you have to run or hide or fight back. That's good. Well, how about when it's just your thoughts? And your thoughts, because that lion disappeared, it went away, your body calmed down. But those thoughts, that lion doesn't go away. So now your body's always in survival mode. So when you're always in survival mode, can you think about tomorrow? Can you pray with an intention and love? Can you worry about other people? What's the only thing you're thinking about? Is survival. How many people know somebody that's addicted to suffering? You tell them to read a book. You tell them to come hang out. I can't. Why? Well, it's this thing. I can't let it go. And they become addicted to it. And the body, the animal, is taking over the mind. So what you have to learn to do is meditate, supplicate. When you shut off the body, you say, I'm going to get to you, but not right now. And when people have done that and overcome themselves, overcome, you've become somebody else. When that father I met prayed to Abu Fadl Abbas, Islam, he had no other option. He couldn't go to the doctors anymore. They couldn't help him. Nobody could help him. And then he was so zoned in, he looked at no other opportunity but Allah. And Allah saved him. If it can happen once, can it happen again? Can it happen to you? You guys ever hear of the 4-minute mile? Scientists said it's impossible. You can't run a mile in 4 minutes. It's physically impossible. Well, guess what? One person did it. He broke the rules of science. So even now, what's going to happen? You know, if we went 1,400 years back, and we would have told somebody you could speak to somebody on the other side of the world through this phone, what would they have told you? No way. How about what we could do in 100 years from now? If those people could come and speak to us, they'll be like, you know, you could heal people just through frequencies of the brain, just by changing their brain waves? Really? Well, people are doing it now. Just like as soon as that person ran the 4-minute mile, what happened? 1,400 people after him were able to do it. Why? Because there was evidence. And the loudest voice in the room is evidence. When you see somebody that was able to do it, like, wow, I could do that. That's why reading is so important. Study somebody's brain or study somebody's success of where they achieved. How did they get there? And learn to mimic them. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, find out the most successful entrepreneurs and mimic them. Don't mimic your friends who got $5 in their pocket and take their advice. Right? It's like if you're in a relationship, just think about it. And if you can't think greater than the way you feel, and a person texts you, hey, you want to meet? And this person knows you're meeting them behind their mom's back and your mom's back. But your feelings overcome you, just like a drug addict. You can't think about tomorrow. You're in survival mode. You got to get this feeling. You got to get this joy. You need something outside of you to make you feel whole. That's why when you're a follower and you're such a strong believer in God, there's nothing anybody could seduce you with. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, his whole family was going to be massacred. And they told him, just give allegiance to Yazid. He said, I can't. I have to save Islam. There's nothing. The Prophet ﷺ says, give me the sun in my right hand, the moon in my left. I still won't stop saying La ilaha illallah. We don't bargain. Believers don't bargain. Why? Because there's nothing that you could give a believer that's greater than what's within them. That divinity within. There's nothing. There's no emotion. There's no amount of money. But if you keep looking for outside things, you're never going to be satisfied. So now you get in a relationship. You meet a person. You go behind the parents' back. You go against Allah. Because Allah says, don't do it this way. Tell your parents, then get to know each other. But you go against Allah. Allah says, not for me, but for you, do it the right way. Why? I do marriage counseling. The biggest issue in our community is cheating. We feel a void because that person now that went behind the parents' back, they got to know that person. Well, what happened? They got married, but this person is used to doing things behind her mom's back or his mom's back. So if that person's willing to go behind his mom, who loves them the most, what do you think they'll do to you? What do you think after 3-4 years of marriage? Well, I'm not feeling joy anymore. Okay, I'm going to do something behind my mom's back, or now my wife's back. And thus, that's why 1 out of every 2 marriages that we go to end up in divorce for this reason. Because we were looking for some outside thing to make us feel whole. Where the prophets and the Imam said, no, it's within. It's all there. Imam Ali says, the universe is without. Why are you looking for something outside? And then when we look for something outside, we're willing to lie, steal, and cheat. And do anything. We had a brother in this community. He wasn't whole. He owned a printing company. He sold more. He had the contracts for Ford, GM, and Chrysler. He was a multi-millionaire living in West Bloomfield. He wasn't whole. His friends started gambling with each other. They said, you know, instead of gambling, taking each other's money, let's go to the casinos. He's wealthy. So what do you think Las Vegas told them? We'll send you a private jet. Come on in. Sure, he would go, outside feeling. When you get that, what do you need more of? Just like when you smoke 1 cigarette and you feel good. Can you stop after 1? When you become addicted? Or a drug? Gambling's the same way. So he started going, started playing, and what did he have to do? When he was gambling for $10, what did he have to do? Gamble for what? More. Just like if you go from one relationship to another, and then you get married, and somebody tells you, stop, now stay with this woman. Are you going to be able to? Not if you didn't do the work. Not if you didn't have a transcendental moment of Allah. What's transcendental? Is when you end the trance of yourself. So he started going, and then one day he went bankrupt. He lost all of his money. Now you have to wake up to yourself. The trance is gone. The money is gone. It's just like when somebody does, sorry, it's been a rough week. You can tell I've done a lot of marriage counseling. And when the husband comes, my wife left me, that's when they get a wake-up call. So you can tell what I've been doing this week. So he comes, he plays, he tells the dealer, you're killing me, you're killing me. He goes home, no money. Bankrupt, in debt. What do you think his thoughts start going? I should kill myself. But right before he does that, what does he decide to do? It happened in our community. It's a Muslim brother. I went to the funeral. Before he killed himself, Shaytan probably whispered to him, and if you can't think greater than the way you feel, and everything's always about you, you're going to listen to Shaytan. Kill your wife so she doesn't have to suffer with you being broke. And kill your kids so they don't have to suffer without a mom or dad. So right before he shoots himself, puts a gun to his 2 kids' heads and his wife's head. For what? Because he started. Shaytan says, don't, Allah says, don't follow the steps of Shaytan. He gets you with one step. One bad friend. Brothers, if you have any friend that treats you better than they treat their own mother, run. Run away. If you have a bad friend, Imam Hussain alayhi salam says, our brothers are of four kinds. Two of them get happy when you do good. The other two either get sad or jealous when you do bad. Or they get happy, when you do good. Or they get happy when you do bad. And they go tell your secrets to other people. But he says the believer gets happy without condition. Find a friend like that. Not a friend that makes fun of you and calls you names every other day. That you guys are constantly picking on each other. Not that type of friend. Trust me, it rewires your brain. You need to end that trance. See, I always found it ironic when I've met people who've had a moment where an angel comes to them, they were saved, but then they go back and they're hanging out with the same people doing the same things. I've known people who have had moments where they've gone to Hajj. They'll tell me, we went to Hajj, we had this amazing moment, but they'll come back. Within 1 week, they go back to the same habits. Why? Here's why. There was a New York group. Pay attention, this is mind-blowing. 70 and 80-year-old men. Canes, back, shorter. They lost their height because they got older. So they measured their height, cognitive abilities, fingers, and some other tests. For 1 week, they had them reminisce as if they were in their 20s and 30s. For 1 week. And they had them watch things and do things. For 1 week. By the end of the week, they threw away their canes and were playing flag football. They measured their fingers grew. Cognitive grew. 1 week. I've seen people after one meditation. I've been in meditations of 1,500 people where somebody's blind or paralyzed. They ask Allah, and they got out of the way. They shut off their body. They told their body, not right now. I'll get to you. And something miraculous happens. But the interesting thing is, as soon as they took those older people back to their environment, what happened? Their back started to hurt. The cane came back. They were reminded to be old because somebody told them. So this is just a lecture about your consciousness. It won't do you any good. Lectures don't change people. If they did, then why was the Prophet silent for the first 40 years? Then the next 13 years in Mecca, he was silent, persecution. Then he went to Medina last 10 years, 8 years of battle, 2 years of speaking. The rest was what? The body. Telling people through action is how you change, not through words. So when you hear something, you say, yes, I should probably get rid of this friend. Or I should pay attention to these thoughts that I have and maybe change them. Or maybe I should read a little bit. Or hang out with this person. Or maybe tell my wife or my mom or my dad the truth. But as soon as we leave here, that's consciously. What do you have to do? You got to have the body aligned to it. And you have to change your habits. Otherwise, you'll be just like those older people in New York or the people who go to Hajj and come back and nothing happens. Because it was all conscious. It wasn't rewiring the body. And until you overcome yourself, how do you do it? You wake up every day. Pick a supplication. Look, I do it with everything in my life. Before I ask anybody, I ask Allah, then I'll ask my mom. Ma, pray for me. I remember there was two brothers playing basketball. And they threw a basketball as a joke at a little boy on the other side of the court. And it hit his head. And they were laughing. I was like, what are you guys doing? What's wrong with you? So then they tried to start arguing with me. Mind my business. I said, are you guys okay? This is funny to you? I was so discouraged. I left. I didn't want to play. So I used to go to this gym and play every day. I love basketball. So I remember, I said, what am I going to do? I don't want to go back there anymore. And somebody said, why don't you pray? There's a Sahifa Sajadiyya, Imam Zainuddin, where there's a dua number 49 to repel evil people. So I did it. I submitted, I tied an emotion of joy that Allah is going to help me with evil people. And I gave the intention. The next day I'm working out, but I don't want to go play basketball with them. And what happens? They fight. With who? Each other. And they got kicked out. I've never seen them again. You know, in Dua Arafah, Imam Hussain says, gain certainty. Because when you're so certain that when you ask Allah and you get out of your own way that He's going to answer, you no longer have to look for anything. You already have it within. But if you keep looking for things outside of you to make you whole, the next car, the next outfit, the next relationship, you're always going to be looking. Here's why. There was a guy who lost his keys. It's an analogy, but think about it. So he lost his keys inside of his house. It's two things. If you lose your keys for a day, will you keep looking for them? How about 2 days? 3 days? 4 days? How about a week? How about a year? Eventually what? You'll stop looking, right? Well, our soul is the same way. If you get into sin and get into bad habits, you'll stop looking and you won't change. And then you'll blame everybody else outside of you why you got a divorce, why you dropped out of school. You know, there's a brother in our community, his name is Catfish, Muhammad Baydoun. He's 18 years old. He's one of the top salesmen now in our community. He sells cars, just like Ali Rito. He said, at 18 years old, his friend came to him and said, can you steal credit card numbers from your gas station? Brothers and sisters, God gives you these tests every single day. From the opportunity of waking up to helping your mom, to taking out the garbage without being told, to when somebody cuts you off, you don't beep at them, get angry. Every day is a test. And if you rewire yourself, then you elevate yourself, then Allah gives you things. Then you can keep going. And the goal is to be like the prophets and the Imams. Every day is a day to elevate yourself. Every single day. So his friend says, can you steal the credit card numbers? The same when we go to school. Do you have the answers to the test? You know, one of the things when I went to the universities here, I was discouraged. Everybody cheated. And the teachers knew it. Students, everybody. People would look at me funny, like, why am I not cheating? So don't you guys believe that Allah could see you? You know what's funny? Zulaykha, the one that went after Prophet Yusuf. You know what she did right before she went after Yusuf, alayhi salam? She put a material clothing over the eyes of the idol that she worshipped. So Yusuf alayhi salam says, why would you do that? He says, I don't want to have God see what I'm about to do. He says, but I believe in a God that's all-seeing, all-knowing. You can't do that. One of the reasons why we sin is because we truly believe that Allah is not watching us. We lack that belief. So Catfish tells him, Brother Muhammad, I should call him by his real name, tells him, no, I can't steal credit cards for you. Because he's like, steal them and we'll split the money. He told him no. His friend looked at him and says, you're going to be a loser your whole life. See, one of the things we're scared, there's a resistance to change. And change is not making the same choices yesterday. We're scared of being alone for a short time. We're scared of having a new personality. Some sisters that want to put on the hijab, they're scared because none of their friends have hijab. But if you cross that river of change, watch out. Something unexpected is going to happen. Some synchronicity. Something is going to happen. So Muhammad tells him no. His friend says you're going to be a loser your whole entire life. 20 years go by, he doesn't see his friend. Then he walks into the dealership. Muhammad says, well, I haven't seen you in 20 years. How's it been? He says, it's been okay. You here to buy a car? No, I really can't afford a car. What do you want to do? He says, can I borrow $200? You know, my family is kind of, I'm having a rough time. You know, if you're 40 years old, you're born here, and you're asked for $200, you've made a lot of bad choices in your life. Isn't it true? Because there's a science of making money. It's pretty easy. There's an art for fulfillment. That's different. But then he gave him money. He says, you could keep it. It's not a loan, it's a gift. Hamid told me he was basically crying. He said if 20 years ago he would have listened to his friend, that would have been him. And some people have gone through things, done things that 20 years ago, and they still haven't learned to let go. Everybody here, do you have somebody to forgive? Somebody that's hurt you? You know, I've dealt with people who've been raped or hurt, and I teach them the art of forgiveness. How can I forgive my rapist? It's because forgiveness is not accepting what they did. It's just you're now releasing the energy. Now you have that energy to do other things. Well, you don't worry about this person anymore. You leave them to God and you forgive them. You know the power of forgiveness, brothers and sisters? They've done a study. Think about this. They've tested people's vertical jump. They tested their vertical jump and they had them run up hills. Then they had them do a forgiveness meditation. I forgive, and you know, sometimes I do it every morning, like I forgive the waiter, I forgive, you know, myself or other things. So they had to do a forgiveness meditation. 5 minutes, that's it. Right after that, they tested their jump. Guess what happened to all of them? They all jumped higher. When they went up the hill, they all felt it was easier. So when you let go of these negative emotions and you forgive people and you're compassionate and you're loving, not only is it a spiritual, it's actually physical. That you feel lighter. Now you have energy. You're out of survival mode. You're not worried that everybody's going to betray you. You're not going to worry that it's going to rain every day. And now you have energy to create. You have energy to ask, what does Allah want of me today? You know Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he goes to Ruqayya. His companions are all dead. All became shaheed. He's the last one. He goes to Ruqayya. He says, can I go with your blessing? She knew the faith of Islam is in her father's hand. She says, Bismillah, which means go. While there's tears. He's on the hill before he goes to battle. And he screams, is there anybody there to help me? But who is he talking to? His companions already passed away. And he's not talking to the enemies. He's talking to me and you. He's talking to the women, the brothers, the sisters. He's talking to us. You know, we're doing Eid al-Mubahila. We recognize it. You know, every day you overcome yourself, the Prophet said that's Eid. Every day you go without sin. And when you have an Eid, Allah says, now you get to ask me for something. And Allah doesn't reject those prayers. Every day, everything that I've ever gotten in my life, I've asked Allah. I envisioned it. Just like you can envision when you first rode your bike. And you'll tell me instantly, was it raining? Was it sunny? Who was there? Of your past, correct? It could be so clear. Well, you should do the same with your future, that it's just that clear. And you tie an emotion of gratefulness. Either if it's pencils for promises, you want to start a school, it's so clear to you. That's the vision that people had that was greater than the environment. That's what the Prophet ﷺ had, even though he was surrounded around idols. He had a vision that was so clear, that was more real than anything around us. That's the way Gandhi had it, Malcolm X. What is the vision that you have every day that you're working towards? Because if you don't have a vision of the future, that means you're living in the past. And that means your familiar past becomes your predictable future. And if you don't change, and you're waiting, we're all waiting for my wife to change, my mom to give in, my brother to let loose. No, you don't wait. You become the change. And then that change in your personality changes your personal reality. And it's that simple. Salawat. So I want everybody here to reflect on one thing, starting tomorrow when they wake up, that they're going to change. Either it's the way you talk to your brother or sister, talk to your mom, a friend that you're going to stop talking to, a habit that you're going to start. And then you're going to ask Allah, show me a sign. I recommend picking either a dua, supplication from the Imams or the Prophet, like dua ahad. I could give you so many miracles just from that dua. Just pick one. Or just do a meditation. And then ask Allah, show me something, show me a sign. We have a God that speaks to us, but not through the way we think, in different ways. Allah is going to show you something that's so unexpected. This is how I've helped people overcome cancer. But you got to overcome yourself. So make a promise today. What's one thing? When my husband leaves the dirty dishes after I clean the whole kitchen, I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to let it go. Here is the sign of a believer. And I'll end with this story. There was a lady who's married, and her husband says, I'm going to ask for a raise today. Said, okay, pray that you get it. I know you'll get it. She encouraged him. So he goes to work, he comes back, and he sees this table filled with food. She's like, maybe one of my coworker friends told her I got the raise. Because how did she know? So she sits there, and he opens up a card, says, I knew you could do it. I believed in you. I knew you could do it. She had roses for him, made him feel very good. But as she was leaving, another card fell mistakenly. And the husband picks it up. And he reads it. He says, honey, even though you didn't get a raise, you didn't need it because you're so worthy to me. And that raise doesn't show your worth. So the wife was ready for what? Both scenarios. That's a believer. And no matter what situation, they elevate. They don't pick. They don't demote. Unfortunately, as soon as somebody tells us something the wrong way, we get angry. You didn't say what you wanted to say. 30-day money-back guarantee, and we go complain. You said 30 days. How about when we make promises at ourselves? Why don't we get angry to ourselves when we don't follow through? Yet we're expecting to reach high level of success. The biggest failure is when you work something so hard, you achieve it, and it doesn't make you happy. You wanted to become a doctor because your ego wanted you to be a doctor, a pharmacist, or a lawyer. Where God says, why didn't you ask me what I think was best for you? Let me show you my way. Why did you listen to your ego? I talk to a lot of lawyers and doctors, and they're unhappy. Look at the studies across America. It's sad. It's because they were told either be a doctor, lawyer, or failure. When you learn something, don't you feel good? How about when you give back? Don't you feel 10 times as good? So whatever it is that you want to do in your life, give back. Don't start small habits, because each and every one of us has the potential of one day of cheating, of killing our families, of hurting people, where the body could take over. We all have. If somebody would have told that person that killed his own family, do you see yourself doing this 20 years from now? He would have said, A'udhu billah. Never. You don't know. That's why even the small sins, pay attention to them. Say, no, I'm not going to belittle my wife anymore. I'm not going to make fun of my sister anymore. I'm not going to live because Imam Hussain says he's waiting for me. Where am I? When the Imam returns, even if you die, you can return. If the Imam accepts. But are we living that way? Well, if we don't ask ourselves questions, then we're not going to. Everybody take out their phone. I was going to do a meditation, but because we're out of time, just want you to share. Who would like to share one response? Like to come up. Last month, I asked somebody for a volunteer. Nobody volunteered. And then one person did, and I gave them $20. Everybody's like, oh, I wish I would have volunteered. Why didn't you volunteer? Because you listened to your thoughts that were wrong. He may embarrass me. This is another opportunity. Who would like to share? Quickly, come on. Somebody. We need one person. It's prayer time. Let's go. Share what you told the person and what they replied.
So I took my friend, her name is Izio, and I said, Salam, inshallah you are doing well. I thought of you and wanted to check in and see how everything is going.
So this is a person that you haven't spoken to in a while?
Yeah, like 2 years.
2 years?
Wait,
okay.
I can tell you that.
It's okay, but it's been a while.
Yeah, like we went to school 2 years ago.
Okay.
And she replies, like, Walaikum Assalam, Sarah, I'm doing great, alhamdulillah. Wallah, I miss you so much, and every time I think of you, I want to text you, but I never work up the nerve to. How are you doing? How's life? She's like a really shy person. So.
Did it take anything for her to do that? And Allah says, let's give her a salawat. God says, when you take care of my believers and you look after them, I'll look after you. You know, imagine if she does something like this every day, where somebody says, oh my God, you reached out, I'm going through this depression. Can you help me? And you save the life. You know what Allah does for you when you do that? But if everything is about you, who's going to text me? Who's going to like my post? And Allah says, you worry about your affairs. But when you worry about the affairs of others, Allah will worry about you. All I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, is give it a try. Pick a supplication. Do it every morning. Do a meditation. If you want to know the science of what I'm saying, where I show you, it's beyond skepticism. They've done brain scans where they see people's brain change after one meditation. There's a person named Joe Dispenza. He's got all the science. He's a neurologist, studies epigenetics, teaches you how to shut off your bad genes, upregulate your good genes. Where doctors will come, how'd you do this? And we're starting to learn the science. But at the end of the day, maybe he can help you live a little bit longer. At the end of the day, are we ready to go see Allah? And Allah says, what did you do today for my companions, for my servants? Let's live that way. The Urafa says that's living Allah li. Stop worrying about yourselves. Stop looking for something outside of you to make you whole. It's all within. You just got a natural dopamine, serotonin by doing these things. Most people get these drugs either through drugs, the iPhone, or through drugs. You could get it naturally. You just did it just by sending that text. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.